All right, hello friends. Welcome to Abstract Curiosity. My name is Rebeka. I am a 1-3 mental projector, Virgo Sun, Capricorn Moon, and Rising.
And hello, I'm Michelle. I am a 4-1 emotional generator. Sun Scorpio, Moon Aquarius, and Ascending is Cancer. And we're excited that you're here with us at Abstract Curiosity.
We're so excited. Thank you for sharing this time with us. And if you are just finding us, I want to let you know we introduce ourselves this way so that you can understand the filter through which we experience this life. Like Michelle said before, this is not us, it's our filter. So it helps you relate to us a little more.
Yeah, love that. It's important to explain, right? Especially those of us who study all this stuff and it's like, what, or people who have never heard it, like, why are they rambling all that stuff? That's why, because if you studied this stuff, then you'll kind of understand our filter. So that's kind of cool. I love that.
Yes.
Yay.
I always love hearing it on other podcasts because then it's like, oh yeah, that's a total 4-line thing she just said or whatever it is. So
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So what are we doing today, Miss Rebeka?
So today we get to dig into my chart and my Chiron. So we decided that we were going to share our own stuff so people could get a little idea of what we do together in these Chiron readings. And so we could just be open. Like you can get to know us in a deeper level and to know that we have been doing this work. Like we have been learning through Chiron as well. We are in this. And so this is why we feel this is one of the reasons we feel so qualified to guide you through this process. So last time, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say? Last time what?
I said last time we dug into yours and it was awesome and beautiful and I kind of led that. And so now you're leading through mine and we're going to get to explore and play a little bit.
We are. We're going to explore and play. And I think the fun part of all of this is for people to really understand, the outcomes of why we're doing it, right? And I think that what we have seen, for us personally and the clients that we have worked with is this idea that, if you're somebody who's really in a space of feeling really stuck, if you're feeling really overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're going through a major transition, those are just a couple of the ways that understanding your Chiron medicine will benefit you because the outcome is clarity and learning how your manifestation actually works and having more confidence as you go through the Chiron medicine. There's just a level of confidence that can happen, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't feel awkward, but God, it just this light kind of just comes from within, and you just become this new flavor of yourself, because when you're accepting whatever Chiron that you chose to come in here to heal over and over again, there's like this radiance that kind of comes off of somebody, as you can tell when they've worked through it. What do you think of that? How I said that, the radiance.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love the radiance idea. And it's interesting because like one of the people that we worked with, when we followed up with her, it was wild to see how much had shifted for her. And I realized with mine too, once we started doing this is really like it just hit me while you were talking how much I really have been starting to own my truth and like how much has been changing actually. And it's so interesting, which I think we might unpack a little bit more. But yeah, there's just been so much healing and so much insight already.
I love owning your truth. I just wrote that down. It's so true. Like, I don't know that I've ever thought of Chiron medicine in that area, but it really is. It is owning the truth of the thing that scares you the most is always going to be the thing that also gives you the most. And that's what Chiron medicine does. It is when you understand it to the depths that you and I support people in their journey on. It's like it's like when you can really own what it is, all of a sudden there's like this sense of freedom and expansion that kind of goes out, like that light we were talking about. So I'm excited to get deep into yours today.
Me too. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. So anybody who's listening,
Cool.
if at some point you want to see what's happening, this will be on YouTube as well. And you can get to know my chart pretty good here as we talk through it.
Okay, this is awesome. So I think what we're going to first start off with is the concept of, in astrology, we understand that gate 23, which is where her Chiron is in the same spot on her conscious and unconscious side, which is interesting. And it's in the throat center. I don't know if you can, I don't think I can point the cursor. Can you show people that real quick?
Does
You
it
rock.
pop up there?
So this is 23. Yeah, it's right up in her throat center. Her throat center is defined. That gives us a little bit more insight to go off of. And so, and she is a mental projector. So again, another layer that we're not going to get into today, but it gives you an idea that we're looking at the complete whole picture. But for Miss Rebeka here, gate 23 is a Taurus sign. That's where it's located at. And so I think what you and I had talked about before for you, and I wanted to bring it back up, is Taurus in the which is Taurus. When it shows up in Taurus, sometimes it can be about resources. It can be, do I have a voice in things? Can I feel worthy of what I do? Can I stand on my own 2 feet and actually make an impact financially with resources within my family? Feeling like I don't feel worthy all the time, or I don't have the value. It can merge with also this, like, knowing that you've got all of this innate wisdom that's within, but for some reason there's like this fear of letting it come out. So when I just talk about it from the Taurus aspect, what resonates with you in that?
Like everything, absolutely everything in that Taurus aspect. And you're right, we haven't really talked about it in that way. But that just hits so hard because, as you know, I have had a lot of journey with the resource aspect and wanting to be able to stand on my own 2 feet in that way and having a really difficult time with it. And finding where my value is in order to bring those resources, and knowing that I have a lot to share, but just not really, like, who would be interested? Like, what I have to say is boring. So
well, yeah, and anybody who's listening and who's worked with Rebeka, her knowledge and her wisdom is so vast. It's one of the main things that really attracted me to Rebeka to work with her, was because of she's such a powerful intellect and she's got such compassion. And I think it's the first 2 things that at least that's what I resonated with you. It's like, oh, she's such a compassionate person and loving person. And I think that knowing that part of the work through with Chiron's medicine in this is knowing that your value in yourself doesn't necessarily have to be that you bring in the resources, right? It's learning to lean on what you consider family. There's kind of like almost this sense of like, whomever I consider my direct family, can I lean more into that? So I think that's pretty awesome that you already like, yeah, that totally resonates. Does my family value me? And I think that's a big question for Taurus Chiron is, does my family value me? Can they value me with who I am, not what I bring in?
yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Who, yeah, like, don't you love this? There's still just little bits of like ahas that constantly are happening even for us, because it's always there. Like, Chiron is always around. It's always that space of growth, that space that I can own my truth, like you said. Okay. Any other thoughts on that you want to share? I can feel it kind of surging through you a little bit. Like,
yeah,
ooh.
that one really hit me. Like, can my family value me for who I am and not for what I do? And because that is something I've realized that I'm still been doing. Like, I was just thinking about this yesterday, I think. Like, I feel like I still have to show up and like do something to prove to my family that I am, doing my best. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah.
And being a projector on top of it. I mean, we don't typically even bring that into, the talk when we're doing here on the podcast sometimes, but just thinking about it from that perspective of that, for you, part of the value is, not anchoring your wagon to people who just can't value you as you are. But at first, you have to learn to value yourself in that perspective, which is pretty profound within itself. That's awesome. And I think sometimes too, just outside of your chart, for people who might have Chiron in Taurus, showing up in Taurus, sometimes it can also lead to like food. It's anything tangible like food or money or, SEX, like any of those type of things, so if other people may not be relating to it as in those type of resources, the resources are whatever it is that you value. And I would say for most people though, I mean, we still live in a society that we have to have money to function. I run into this sometimes with clients. I don't know if you do. I don't really want to talk about the money aspect. I want to get to the world where we're not having to worry about finances. But in truth, we're getting to that point. But right now, we still need to have at least some way to manifest money to ourselves. And so I would say that for somebody who has this in their Chiron is that you're also going to be able to assist other people to see their own value. And when you see your own value, that's when I would believe that the money flows in.
Yes, I've been getting that sense for myself as well. And
Okay.
it's been such a journey.
Yeah, right? I love that so much. So let's move into, again, the throat center. Let's talk about the throat center because this is where hers is at. It's in gate 23, the throat center, which is the one that's brown right now and on the chart. And so when we think about Chiron in this area, this is considered obviously communication, but it's also considered manifestation area. That's the throat center. That's what we believe. Like, so manifesting, to me, I think that kind of anchors in more of like understanding that my value isn't attached to what other people expect of me. My value is my value. And when I do that, and then we talk about it in the idea that being able to express yourself and your opinions on things, because that's what gate 23 is about. I know, or I believe, I can believe in myself, and I know it's in the now, it's in the current, it's not in the future, it's not in the past, it's in the now, which is always the most difficult one, is things that are in the knowing center, which is gate 23 really is. How does that resonate with you?
Yes, the knowing and sharing what I know has been one of my biggest fears. But it's interesting because I can point to like some childhood things where I shared what I know and people were like, "Bleh."
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can kind of shut it down. It was like weird. I'll just tell you this random quick story. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm me. So I like loved random facts. And so in fourth grade, the teacher somehow didn't know that the rainbow spelled Roy G. Biv. Like, that's how you remember the order of the colors. And I
Yeah.
mentioned it. And so then one day on a quiz we had, or a test, she put a extra credit question on the overhead projector, like what's the rainbow order of the colors or something. And then it's like I could feel everybody looking at me because that was just something I mentioned. So I was like, I'm just not gonna talk anymore.
Oh, because you felt all of that, everybody looking at you, and you're like, "Ooh, I spoke up, and now it's being highlighted in front of everyone again." Is that what it is? Is that what
Yeah.
you mean?
Well,
Yeah.
it's like
Okay.
I shared something I know, and now she's testing the entire class to see if they know it too. Like, why?
Okay. I see what you're
Why?
saying.
Like, I was just
Okay, I get what
sharing
you're
something I thought
saying.
was cool.
Right, right. And now you're pinpointing me on that and expanding it. Okay, I get it. Yeah, that would be a kind of a Chiron uncomfortable moment, would it not? With this 23, that would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense. All right. Kind of the indicator with gate 23, which would mean how you might see it showing up in your world, might be that is when 23 lets your mind overcomplicate things. And you really are here. Gate 23 has this expression of like being able to share things, but really simply, not so detailed. But sometimes I would assume that the complexity is that either you'll feel like I don't feel smart enough to be sharing this, or it might show up as blurting things out that might feel very scattered and unorganized because you haven't taken a moment to process. How can I explain this in a simple way? Does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, I can resonate with both things for sure. More the introverted shutdown because thinking that I don't know enough, everybody else knows more than me, so I'm just not going to say anything. And then every once in a while I get
Yeah.
excited and just kind of blurt stuff out. But I mean, and then add being a mental projector and like I kind of need to talk it out really. So
Yeah, that's really, yeah. And then you add in this idea of the value part of myself. Like, I don't really value at times, let's say when you were much, much younger, when you were in school, it's like, well, I had this insight, so you gave the insight, and then it was like it showed your brilliance, right? Because a teacher didn't even realize the Roy G. Biv thing, which that's okay. But then it's like you were walking into that Taurus thing, like, can I be valued in this group? Do I have can I be defined enough that I can be seen for my gifts and talents and my resources? And anchoring yourself in that, right? And then being able to share and express it. But isn't it interesting that through that you felt that Chiron energy came through and said, that feels a little ouchy to be seen and heard for something that was going to help other people, but then other people being questioned about it, or it was a test question. Isn't that interesting? So it shows how much that was, even as a kid, how important going through those lessons with Chiron, but not knowing that that is part of your journey to self-healing and self-reflection, right?
absolutely.
We usually remember parts of our lives that I think always resonate somehow, some way within our Chiron wound. And
Yep.
that's why we consider it something from your past life or from when you were a child, because the wound starts, you start to observe the wound, which shifts your behavior. So tell me, after that experience with the teacher, did you raise your hand a lot? Did you share
Oh
insights
no.
again?
No.
Okay. Yeah, isn't that interesting? In that one instant, that shifted a lot for you.
It did. Like
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. And even before that, there was something that happened in second grade where I mean, obviously not consciously, but looking back, I can realize I decided I wasn't smart in second grade. And so all growing up, I didn't think I was smart. It wasn't until I was back in school as a full time single mom finishing my undergrad degree that I got a certification in the mail that I've made the dean's list for all A's. That it was like, maybe I've got something here.
Wow. That's impactful. I mean, you think about that concept of not feeling like, again, value. I don't have value. Taurus, I don't have value.
Yeah.
How can I be smart, right? What resource do I have? What can I bring to the table, right? So now we're talking about resources even outside of money, but not feeling like I'm smart enough to even have the value to have money wrap around all of this, but yet your Chiron is in gate 23, which is a vocal manifesting area, which is saying, hey, I know you know some things. Could you share it with us? And I think the funny part is that, Rebecca and I, like in the podcast before this one, where she was helping me talk about mine, and how I have a tendency to put on a disclaimer after mine saying, well, take that opinion as you want. And she always pulls me out and says, that's your Chiron speaking. You're like, you're right. And so for Rebecca, what we noticed was that when we talk sometimes and she's sharing something that she knows, she'll do this and she'll cover her throat with whatever, or she'll put her shirt up to her mouth as she's talking or getting done. Yeah, just like that. And so now we know that sometimes even our Chiron, especially if you have it in the angina or the throat area, number wise, like sometimes you're going to see like this actual physical protection of trying to, like, I really want to stand in this, but I feel like I have to step back a little bit because this is a little uncomfortable for me because I know what people are going to, I think I know what people are going to think of me or want from me or say about me. And again, it usually comes down to judgment, how we're feeling people are going to judge us for, and that's what a lot of Chiron is how are people going to experience what it is that I'm walking through. And for some people, it'll be like, well, what's the big deal? Why is it that you can't share what you know? And you're like, unless you got Chiron in those areas, you're not going to understand it because yours is just so specific to you.
Yes.
So let me ask you a few more questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
So you have said that the Chiron you've felt showed up a lot in your childhood when you were speaking and talking and not feeling like you had, as an adult, that you weren't very smart. So therefore, how else do you see that pivoted? Because you're going through your Uranus return right now, opposition. So you're going through shifts and changes. How do you feel walking through Chiron and saying, I have value, and learning to appreciate who you are as you are? How are you seeing that unfolding in like your day-to-day living?
It has been super interesting. And like one thing when I was talking about at the beginning, one of the big realizations that have come through with this and sharing what I know, one big thing I know is that I'm not quote unquote normal, like let's say neurotypical, right? And so it has led to me taking steps to be tested for autism to start figuring out what's happening. And that has been huge because I've been trying to just blend into the world and just everything. It's like this unravels everything because if I show up as I am, I know I'm meant to share what I know. Like when I think about successful me in the future, I'm on a stage, I'm writing a book, I'm like a thought leader type person, right?
Yeah.
But as I stand right now, I'm still holding back what I know, but I also realized that everything I've been talking about has been through this filter of wanting to be accepted for what I talk about instead of just sharing what I know. And so I think the first step in being tested for autism and being very clear about this is how my brain works gives me that ability to accept myself on a deeper level. And even just the practice of showing up and having myself tested and taking care of myself in that way, instead of trying to just mindset my way into feeling better.
Yeah.
That has been huge. So, and then sharing with my family, like, hey, this is what's happening with me. And I had to get to a place of, you know what, I don't have to prove anymore. I don't have to go out and do X, Y, and Z anymore. I'm just saying, here's where I am.
Yeah.
And I deserve to be supported here. And that has been hard. But it's also felt really, really good.
And in the hardness of that, it's difficult because
the story that I held on to is that I haven't done enough to deserve, like why am I not better resourced myself to where I don't have to ask for help from somebody else. I've failed so far because I haven't been able to have a career that I've wanted and build the stability that I've wanted. And if all I do is take care of myself, isn't that selfish? Isn't that like me just wasting resources? Don't I need to go do something? So a lot of that.
And that's huge and significant because you have, like you and you've shared this in other podcasts, you're a single mom, you've got 2 amazing kids, and you're trying to figure all of this out. And that's what happens, sometimes when we discover the Chiron and its medicine, it's like, wow, so I have to learn to understand I have value. And I give in resources in my understanding of who I am and what I believe in. but because sometimes of a lot of the past of like when you spoke up when you were a child and the many other stories that's behind it, sometimes that becomes even more gripping. And I can see the layers possibly of when that started as a child, and then all of a sudden you started to just disbelieve, like, I'm not smart. Like, and that became your safety net. That became the place that you would pop into in order to probably, and I'm asking, to blend in so you wouldn't stand out. Was that part of it for you? I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And even later in high school, I made a comment, like I read something somewhere, and this girl was like, "Have you ever noticed how many times you start a sentence with you read something?" So then I never mentioned again what I read.
Oh, okay. So becoming so much of an observer of how other people were responding to you, it pretty much put like a shell around you that you couldn't, it made you more nervous to say, but I do know these things and I did read. By the way, she's a 1-3, by the way. She's a studier, right? A studier and somebody who has to experiment with things. So isn't that interesting that that layer within the chironic energy? And I think that's what we're seeing, in particular for ourselves and with our clients, is that that's why we call it the deepest wound, is because if we're not cognizant of what it is that we're supposed to holistically be growing from, and her aspect, Rebeka's aspect, is learning how she's valued from her family, how she perceives herself as being valued, how she's perceiving what she believes in and it's important, and that she's able to manifest in a different, very unique way, being a 1-3 mental projector, right? All of these aspects were building blocks of experiences in which she had that she felt made you go and retreat more and more and more, until all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I am smart. Wait a minute, let me learn more about my Chiron and understand like these levels of healing, of not allowing other people's opinions of me cause me to go inward. In fact, it should be the thing that I'm going outward more about, which is what you've been doing for quite a while now, right?
Yes, yes. I've been able to show up and share what I know about human design. And that's been interesting too, because one of the realizations with this is that I've never felt like I just wanted to be known for just human design, but it's almost like that was comfortable for me to show up. Like I could share that I know stuff about human design, and people could ask me stuff about that because it's like this system that's not really me.
Mm,
And now
okay.
it's like, I feel like I've shared everything about human design. So how can we get a little more nuanced here? How can I be me inside of this sharing about human design and whatever else
And
comes
it's,
through?
yeah, in integration, right? It's the integration of learning the Chiron and then using it as your medicine in order to help you grow and expand. So tell me one thing. What has been personally your biggest aha with your Chiron medicine? That's the first question. Do you have just one that you can share? And it might be one you already shared. I don't know.
It might be the autism thing, honestly, of just
Okay.
really owning, like, I know I'm different. Like, I'm going to stop trying
Okay.
to fit in now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then what was the biggest thus far making those decisions for yourself? Out of all the things that we've talked about with Chiron, what's the part that really excites you as you walk through it? Every time you walk through it, is there a feeling that you get every time you're like, okay, this is who I am? Oh, there's some new awareness. Like, what is it for you that you get to experience as you walk through the Chiron medicine?
I do get a little excited when I realize what's happening, when I can see myself holding back, uh, or when I shared something and I realized like that would have been really scary to say even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, then I like high five myself in my mind, like, sweet, look at that, I'm growing.
It's a level of confidence, right?
Yes, yes. And then it does feel good. And then you know what? When the world doesn't explode and people don't tell me how much they hate me because I said that thing, then then I get validated
Yes.
that it's okay.
Right? That's so impactful and so true for all of us who have these things in the ajna and throat center. I think all of us kind of experience it. And again, where this is happening for you makes a huge impact of like how it's going to be utilized on the daily. And I think that's part of the thing that Rebecca and I always get so excited about is having people get this such clarity that they can really observe their world through the medicine and not through how it's holding me back, or it's the thing I need to be fearful of. When you're a child, of course it's going to be fearful because by the time you get into school, right, is when you've learned, every person on the planet has learned how and what they need to do to adapt to be safe and secure with whatever environment they're in, right? There's going to be those rebels, but that's true, right?
Absolutely. And think about like my story, fourth grade, I'm 10, I'm like a preteen. So of course I'm like dying in my seat because I just swear everybody is staring at me, you know?
Exactly.
Such a Beverly Cleary moment. So, like that. So of course that's like implanted in my brain. Whereas now as an adult, I'm like, whatever. So,
maturity.
It's just different. But there was something else in my mind, but it left, so that's fine.
Okay, that's cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to add in before we kind of wrap this up today about your personal journey through Chiron?
Well, it just has been interesting. It's the unfolding, like you said. Oh, that's what it was, where realizing it like once it's called out, once you shine the light on it and once you see what's happening, and then you can start to put the pieces together and move through it as a loving observer and not a fearful judger, then it really changes the dynamic where you can look at the situation, like my story in fourth grade, and it's like, oh yeah, of course that shut me down. Of course that was terrifying. And then realizing, especially with me, I'm really here to share. Like there's so much else in my chart that really confirms I'm here to share and to share what I know specifically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And to have that holding me feels so good when I realize once I do that, once I step into that space and own that, that's when movement can start to happen. That's when manifesting can start to happen. And that's when I start to meet my people. And it's just like, that's how I met you. And all this, like all the people that I'm starting to meet online, it's amazing. And it just really confirms, and I find it fascinating too, because I literally messaged my friend yesterday, sent her a 90-second voice memo about her Chiron, and she wrote back, she's like, holy shit. And she's like, you nailed it. And it was funny when I was looking at hers, it really it was the same thing where it played into this, like she's really here to be and to show us an example of how to be in this world and like play and like have fun as a human. And her Chiron was basically like, and you're going to have trouble doing that. So it's so fascinating how it kind of confirms but helps you step into your purpose in this deeper level.
And the other thing that's hitting me right now too is what I think is interesting is that yours comes up, if you can show everybody again, yours is in gate 23. It doesn't show up, by the way. Chiron will never be colored on the chart. It will just show itself on the sides of the chart. But hers is in gate 23, which is her throat, which is reaching up to her beliefs, right? That's what the Anjana is. Well, it's your belief center, right? And it's not complete.
Sorry. I get all specific because gate 56 is the voice of I believe. And so, but you're right, the ajna, sorry, I'm just talking through this so I can get, the beliefs, the understanding, the concepts. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so she already has a full channel for the 1156, right? She has a great way of being able to share and understand and give people all that. But because her Chiron is in 23 and it's reaching up towards something that there's nothing there to obtain, I think what we're starting to see is a pattern of like what it is that you might be struggling with. Like for me, it's the opposite. I'm 17, if you can show Shove at 17. In my chart, reaching down to the throat. So I have opinions on things, and I'm always trying to figure out a way to express it. Where yours is, I already have this knowledge within me. I know how to manifest it, but for me to shoot it up into where it's reaching towards, which is the Anjana, which would be a belief system and opinion about something, that's also can make it more difficult. I think that's just an interesting part to look at when people are trying to understand their Chiron, of like why it's such a struggle. Well, it's because of struggle, because it's trying to hit something that it's not comfortable with. What do you think of that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then it's interesting looking at individual charts too to see, because we have seen where people have Chiron, but that same gate is defined in other planets. So it tells a whole different
Yes.
story,
Whole
or they'll
different
have
story.
the opposite gate. So it is interesting. And that's why it's so fun to work with different people, because everyone is so different and unique, and it tells such a specific story to
Yeah.
unpack. And it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. Thanks for letting us dive into yours. I'm excited because we still have some openings at our special pricing if anybody's interested in working with both of us. Because when we do our Chiron Medicine sessions with people, you get both of us. Two loving moms who really have had, 8 years at least with human design, over 10 years experience in astrology, and we both have studied human behavior. That's what our degrees are in. So you're fully supported and loved during your journey, but the exceptional value of clarity and confidence and learning how to manifest and what your life purpose is, a lot of the times that comes out within your Chiron. So we look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you. Let us know what in the comments, where your Chiron's at. Give us some input. Let us know what else you'd like to learn.
Yes, we look forward to hearing from you. Again, thanks for sharing your time with us. And we look forward to chatting with you in the future. Love y'all.
Love you. How